my fellow Finland this podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful fucking Angus, South Florida, and today's date is Friday, April 18th, 2017. No problem, we got a little business transaction going on at CJ's Java Lounge, located at 400 Southwest 470 Suite 1 along the beautiful new river of Fort Lauderdale, within the Yacht Club along southwest section of the Andrews Avenue Bridge. Ooh, man, and wow, this is like amazing right now. It's a little bit stoked up. Looks like Barcelona, areas of Spain, section of Catalonia, if I'm correct. Been a terrorist attack over there, and they said ISIS is responsible. You could say New World Order 101 at its finest, which is very horrific, unacceptable, and I condemn it with a passion. So exactly, put your hopes, thoughts, and prayers to these people out there. Just an example of what global tyranny is going on. It's what's been happening in every pattern, folks. When you start learning these things, you gotta examine the bigger picture. The more you learn about this, the more you can figure it out. Boom, the best you can say, hey, you're a bunch of lying pieces of garbage. Stop. Just give me this propaganda matrix. This is why, my friends, I always try to address to all my beautiful people out there, not just on this show, but out in the streets as well, because everyone still has that mindset to get the sensitivity. I can't offend people. You know what? If you can't handle it, go back in your cave. And I'll tell folks this for one thing for sure: if you think this is bad right now with your people getting offended with little words, you're better off reading the Might. You should do yourself a favor. Read the book, The Might is Right. Yeah, it's a dark book. And even though it was Anton LaVey and the Church of Satan was inspired by that, and regardless, like on the streets, you learn about how dangerous the world is, and even his book is self-explanatory as well. Some controversial comments in there, however, it's about how the strong survive and the weak perish and all this stuff, and it's not trying to promote it, saying read the book is the greatest book ever. But the truth of the matter is, you got folks out there have that mindset, and we gotta have a safeguarding nature wherever you go. Now, it looks like the patterns here for Barcelona is very similar, bringing over vehicles and all that. And of course, once again, you want to blame it on ISIS, you're gonna say the Muslims, this and that. But you know what? Like I said before, over and over again, ISIS is one world order funded. I'm pretty damn consistent at it, again, and not tuning my horn or sticking my chest out and have me on the spotlight. Yes, I know more than everybody else. That's never was my show or my nature. Never, ever. So, alright, well, I'm going to talk about a few more things on Charlottesville. I'm not trying to harp it, but one thing I like to do is narrate the intellectual aspect from these unique individuals. So this is a guy from a person, actually John Whitehead from newsbuzz.com. He's the president of the Rutherford Institute. And we're going to be talking a few more on this and possibly the reaction solutions on what the state and the government is trying to do, which is very dangerous. And when you hear about people like Nancy Pelosi, oh, we're gonna arrest people and go after folks and that, she's not more like the rest of the quacks in the federal government are just a bunch of schoolyard bullies. They think that they're better than everybody else. We have to listen to them for their own good. When they make those comments, they're lying to you. They're saying, we want you to stomp your face in and lick the soles of our boots. That's what the federal government's all about, in the tyrannical elements within that particular entity. Oh, I will just start off here. Chaos in Charlottesville, no one gave peace a chance, including the police. This came out yesterday. So, as it reads here, what has violence ever accomplished? What has it ever created? No wrongs have ever been righted by riots and civil disorders. An uncontrollable mob is the only voice of madness, not the voice of the people. Whenever any American's life is taken by another American unnecessarily, whatever it is done in the name of the law or in defiance of the law, by one man or a gang, in cold blood or in passion, in the attack of violence or in response to violence, whatever we tear tear at the fabric of life with which another man has painfully and clumsily woven for himself and his children, and the whole nation is degraded. That was from Robert Kennedy. Okay, let's be clear about one thing. No one, not the armed, violent, militant protesters nor the police, gave peace a chance during the August 12th demonstrations in Charlottesville, Virginia. What should have been an exercise in free speech quickly became a brawl. It is not about who threw the first punch or the first smoke bomb. It's not about what faction outshouted the other, or which side perpetrated more violence, or even which group can be claimed to be the greater victim. One young woman is dead of the hate, violence, intolerance, racism, and partisanship that's tearing this country apart, and it has to stop. Lawful, peaceful, nonviolent First Amendment activity did not kill Heather Heyer. You hear that, folks? It did not kill her. The First Amendment activity, nonviolent First Amendment activity, did not kill Heather Heyer. So all you folks want to believe we should censor a particular group on their freedom of speech, you just declare yourself an enemy of the Bill of Rights and humanity. And I say that with respect. She was killed by a 20-year-old neo-Nazi who drove his car into a crowd of pedestrians in Charlottesville, Virginia. Words, no matter how distasteful or disagreeable, did not turn what should have been exercise and free speech into a brawl. This was accomplished by militant protesters on both sides of the debate, who arrived at what should have been a nonviolent protest armed with sticks and guns, bleach bottles, balloons filled with feces and urine, and improvised flamethrowers, and by law enforcement agencies who stood by and allowed it. And remember, one person told me, oh, but the good people are open carry. Yeah, but all this other stuff is okay. You gotta think before you speak. As the New York Times reported, protesters began to mace one another, throwing bottles and urine-filled balloons, some of which hit reporters, and beating each other with flagpoles, clubs, and makeshift weapons. Before long, to the downtown area was a melee. People were ducking and covering with a constant stream of projectiles whistling by our faces, and air was filled with the sounds of fists and sticks against flesh. The madness is spreading. People I know, good decent people who value equality, reject racism, and believe strongly in tolerance, in their grief and dismay and disgust, threatened violence, acted like a mob, and adopted a similarly violent, intolerant, disorderly tactics as those they claim to oppose. To those who defend free speech were castigated by those who believe that only certain views should be allowed to be heard. To me, that is unacceptable. Okay? So all you people want to defend on one side or the other, try to condemn one person, try to take away their free speech once again, you'd be less patriotic than Benedict Arnold. Okay? So I will pursue here. Those who cling to nonviolence were outnumbered by angry mobs intent on inciting violence. Those who normally advocate message of tolerance gave into the temptation to spew hate and intolerance. The Rutherford Institute and the ACLU, two organizations who repeatedly stand up for the Constitution and for the rights of all people, no matter how disagreeable their views may be, have been cursed, denounced, and threatened with violence for daring to remind government officials and the members of the community that the First Amendment applies to all people equally. And you know what? I will support that 100%. If you're offended, too bad. Because deep down inside, you know I'm right, and it's not my fault if you have a sensitive spot. So you know what? Don't take your crap out on me. Go back to your safe space. Because when it comes to free speech, when I address it, I know how to damn well implement it. It's not trying to be arrogant. I do, forgive me, because I do get inspired. Okay, my friends? The threat of violence has come from people who are rightfully disgusted by the racist rhetoric and the actions of the neo-Nazis, wrongly decide that the answer to bigotry, intolerance, and violence is mob justice, intolerance, and more violence. Glenn Greenwald gets it, and I read his article, by the way, Sunday. You can look it up yourselves, all right? It is a resounding rebuke of those who opt to employ the tactics of fascists in order to silence fascists, Greenwald writes for The Intercept, demonizing lawyers and civil liberty advocates by depicting them as complicit in the heinous acts of their clients is a long-standing scam that is not confined to the U.S. Needless to say, none of these legal organizations or individual lawyers condone violence. They are all vehemently oppose the ideology and worldview in the name of which violence is committed, yet they are all blamed for the violence and accused of complicity in it because they defend the free speech rights and civil liberties of people who express views in the name of which violence is committed. The flaws and dangers in this anti-free speech mindset are manifest, but nonetheless always worth highlighting, especially when horrific violence causes people to want to abridge civil liberties in the name of stopping it. I say null and void. In some, purporting to oppose fascism by allowing the state to ban views it opposes is like purporting to oppose human rights abuses by mandating the torture of all prisoners. One of the defining attributes of fascism is forcible suppression of views. You can't fight the ideology by employing and championing one of its defining traits, viewpoint-based state censorship. The need to fight neo-Nazism and white supremacy, whatever it appears as compelling, the least effective tactic is to try to empower the state to suppress the expression of their views. That will backfire in all sorts of ways. Strengthening that movement and ensuring that those who advocate state censorship today are at its defenseless targets tomorrow. Whatever else is true, the impulse to react to the terrorist attacks by demanding the curtail of the poor civil liberties is always irrational, dangerous, and self-destructive, no matter how tempting that impulse might be. In other words, silencing the unpopular viewpoints with which the majority might disagree, whatever it is, by shouting them out, censoring them, muzzling them, or criminalizing them only empowers those in the minority. We are walking in a dangerous road. And there's the role police are supposed to play in upholding the law and preventing violence. It is a thankless job most of the time, and police must walk a fine line between respecting peaceful First Amendment activity and maintaining the peace while overstepping the limits of the Fourth Amendment. For whatever reason, which only police and government officials are privy to, the police failed to do their job at the Charlottesville demonstration, a charge levied by both the alt-right and the counter-demonstrators. The same police who in the past have responded to any acts of disorder or disobedience with the full power of their uniform and weapons were curiously lax in the face for outright violence. As Rolling Stone reported recounted, unlike other events I've covered where anti-fascist protesters face off with the white supremacists, police make no effort to cordon the groups from each other and to prevent violent clashes before they happen. Despite the fact that 1,000 first responders, including 300 state police troopers and members of the National Guard, many of whom have been preparing for a downtown rally for months, had been called to work on the event despite the fact that police and riot gear surrounded Emancipation Park on three sides, and despite the fact that Charlottesville had what reporter David Graham referred to as a dress rehearsal of sorts. A month later, when 30 members of the Ku Klux Klan were confronted by 1,000 counter-protesters, the police failed to do their job. In fact, as Washington Post reports, police seemed to watch as groups beat each other with sticks and bulging on one another with shields. At one point, police appear to retreat, then watch the beatings before eventually moving in and end the free-for-all, makes arrests and tend to the injured. Police stood by as mayhem mounted in Charlottesville, reported ProPublica. Could police have prevented bloodshed in Charlottesville? Asked the Atlantic. Police response inadequate at Charlottesville rally, concluded U.S. News. There is no police presence, a peaceful activist explained. We are watching people punch each other, people were bleeding, all while the police inside of barricades at the park watching. It was essentially just brawling on the street, community members trying to protect each other. Cornell West echoed this statement. Police did do nothing in terms of protecting the people of the community, the clergy, he told Washington Post. So what should the police have done differently? For starters, the police should have established clear boundaries, buffer zones between warring groups of protesters and safeguarding the permit zones. Instead, as eyewitnesses' accounts indicated, police established two entrances into the permanent areas of the park and created barriers guiding rally goers single file into the park past lines of white nationalists and Antifa counter-protesters. This is where the worst of the violence between protesters took place. By 8:40 a.m., protesters had already started gathering in the downtown area. Police failed to separate them. By 10 o'clock, a mob of white supremacists formed a battle line across a group of counter-protesters. Police looked on and did nothing. By 11 a.m., the general unrest has dissolved into all-out disorder. The police did not step in. All while protesters were throwing urine-filled bottles, pepper spray, and smoke bombs and clobbering one another with flag-posting shields. Brian Moran, Virginia's Secretary of Public Safety and Homeland Security, watched from a command post overlooking the downtown area and did nothing. Okay? A governmental entity. And this is the thing about Homeland Security. You see what they're doing, okay? He's representing Homeland Security in the state. That's a major conflict of interest. It's more of feds stepping on, encroaching on states' jurisdiction. And I say that honorably, folks. You gotta really pay attention to this and go further. Okay, this is one thing I am so baffled. I will continue to proceed. Moran watched while fights broke out and police stood by and failed to intervene. Only at 11:22 a.m., after hours of brawling and confrontation between the protesters, did Moran take action by calling Governor Terry McAuliffe to declare a state of emergency. Only then did the police mobilize to declare the gathering an all-lawful assembly, cutting off the rally before it officially began and began clearing demonstrators out of the park. So you see that? Can we say inside job? My friends, inside job. Think about it. They let this happen. Remember, government means control of the mind. If the government said we're going to protect you, give them a penile microphone. They're lying to you. They're mumbling at you, saying, we will take care of you. And you get that knife stabbing in your back. Ting, 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 ting. There are other models that could have been followed. As investigative reporter Sarah Posner notes, at a neo-Nazi rally in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, just days before the November election, police employed this tactics with success. While the rally attendees and anti-fascist protesters taunted each other over the barriers of police, they were blocked from coming into physical contact. But in Charlottesville, the police inaction creates a sense of pandemonium. What happened? See? Basic setups. I will go on here. A good strategy, advises former federal prosecutor Miriam Krinsky, is to make clashes less likely by separating two sides physically, with officers forming a barrier between them. Create a human barrier so the flashpoints are reduced as quickly as possible, she said. In Cleveland, the site of the GOP presidential convention, Trump diehards, revolutionary communists, Wobblies, and Alex Jones disciples faced off in a downtown plaza. Yet, as Atlantic reports, just as confrontations between the groups seemed near to getting out of hand, police swooped into the square in huge numbers, using bicycles to create cordons between rival factions. The threat of violence soon passed, and no pepper spray nor tear gas was needed. So they diffused the situation. That's the way you gotta do things, my friends. Alright? It's very methodical. For that matter, consider that Charlottesville police established clear boundaries just a month earlier in which they maintained clear lines for demarcations at all times between KKK protesters and counter-protesters. Indeed, the primary violence at the July 8th Klan rally came in when police used tear gas and pepper spray to force protesters to disperse. I don't know what's going on with the city of Charlottesville, but I tell you one thing, you got a bunch of douchebags that don't have a damn clue. Forgive me, this is just an example. The question is, as already, where do we go from here? It's a question that Martin Luther King Jr. wrestled and addressed in his last book he wrote before his assassination, Where do we go from here? Chaos or community? King pointed out repeatedly, hate begets hate. Violence begets violence. As I made clear in my book, Battlefield America, The War on the American People, tyranny begets tyranny. Day after King was assassinated, Robert F. Kennedy delivered these remarks. It is a time of shame and sorrow. It is not a day for politics. I save this one opportunity to speak briefly to you about this mindless menace of violence in America, which again stains our lands and every one of our lives. It is not concerned of any one race. Victims of the violence are black and white, rich and poor, young and old, famous and unknown. They are most important of all human beings, whom other human beings love and needed. No one, no matter where he lives or what he does, can be certain who will suffer from senseless acts of bloodshed. Yet it goes on and on. Too often we honor swagger and bluster and the wielder of force. Too often we excuse those who are willing to build their own lives on the shattered dreams of others. Some Americans who preach nonviolence abroad fail to practice it here at home. Some who accuse others of inciting violence have, by their own conduct, invited them. Some look for scapegoats, others look for conspiracies, but this is much clearer. Violence breeds violence, repression brings retaliation, and only a cleaning of our whole society can remove the sickness from our soul. From a broad and adequate outline, we know what must be done. When you teach a man to hate and fear his brother, when you teach that he is a lesser man because of his color or his beliefs or the policies he pursues, when you teach that those who differ from you threaten your freedom or your job or your family, then you also learn to confront others not as fellow citizens but as enemies. To be met not with cooperation but with conquest, to be subjugated and mastered. We learn at last to look at our brothers as aliens, men whom we share a city but not a community, men bound to us in common dwelling but not in common effort. We learn to share only a common fear, only a common desire to retreat from each other, only a common impulse to meet disagreement with force. The lesson for all of us is, remember, when you strip away politics and the class warfare and the skin color and the religious ideology and gender differences and the sexual orientation and anything else that can be used as a source of division, remember that underneath it all, we are all the same. Some folks may not agree on it. As Nelson Mandela recognized, no one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his religion. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. For love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. And I'll be very sincere, I'm not really crazy about a lot of Nelson Mandela's actions, but in this area, I can say he was correct. Well, that's one of the areas we all need to look at. Stop pointing the fingers. Stop creating tyrannical solutions. Stop letting your sensitivity supersede logic. Stop. Try not to use censorship. Have a censorship agenda over our Bill of Rights culture. My rights are natural born, so are yours. What happened in Charlottesville was completely unacceptable. I know I may have repeated myself on this matter, but it has to be very clear. You got some individuals out there are very obtuse on what's going on. They want to go for one side, very unidimensional, and you know what? That will burn you. Like I talked about it yesterday on my show about stupidity of one of the 9 satanic sins. But like I said, interesting read regardless of your creed. I know I am digressing. So, and forgive me on that, my friends. The past is today's greatest teacher. You have to learn from it all across the board. Learn it. Better yourselves. You want to stop this racial and hatred? Let's start talking to one another as articulate human beings. We're going to have disagreements at times. It's natural. However, we can learn from one another. There's areas you folks are fantastic at, and vice versa. We all got those powers within us. And this is why I always tell folks, never stagnate. And Thomas Paine said it best, one of his quotes. The mind, once enlightened, cannot become dark. I'm going to add that to the footnotes as well, friends, okay? So, here's a real, gotta give him a lot of credit for that. So, and I'll be back. Alright, so, next we're going to hit is actually from a View, which came out on the 13th by Jeff Deist from Mises Institute. It says here, the wrong narrative in Charlottesville. The political violence in Charlottesville yesterday was as predictable as it was futile. One person was killed and a dozen badly injured, making a new low in the political and cultural wars as they are as heated at any time since America since 1960s. The relentless politicalization of American culture has eroded goodwill and inflamed and the worst impulses in society. Any thought and the ultra-right may represent simple-minded expressions of hatred and fear, but both groups are animated entirely by politics, the perception that others can impose their will on us politically. The only lasting solution to political violence is to make politics matter less. We've allowed politics to invade every aspect of American life, from religion and family to sex and sexuality, from bathrooms to the ball fields to the workplace. But what has it gotten us besides invading politics and steroids? The personal is political is hardly the rally cry of free and confident nation. Even as we enjoy historically unparalleled material prosperity, we are dispirited by the 2016 election hangover and looking for scapegoats to explain the American malice. It's easy to decry Antifa as viewing left-wing rhetoric. It is easy to cry the alt-right, the neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and fascists. It's more important to understand that as them as exemplars of a new political age. Progressives demand a permanent revolution. Conservatives responded by becoming more permanent reactionaries. And the media's bias, overwhelmingly the anti-right, make things worse. One side becomes convinced of its moral superiority, while the other becomes convinced the fix is in. We suspect, without knowing, that a Hillary voter is just a step or two removed from bandana-clad Antifa, while a Mitt Romney voter is but a few degrees removed from an alt-right nationalist marching in the streets. They may seem farcical, but the political society promoted by Clinton and Romney encourages it. Everyone must take a side and live with these excesses. You know what I'm saying? You were not, so you want the terrorist. You know, George W. Bush during the Vladimir Lenin quote. What we saw this weekend was a demonstration of the horseshoe effect, where both groups begin to sound and act like the other, both liberal and both demanding omnipotent state solutions to problems mostly created by government in the first place. To be sure, Antifa and the alt-right represent only a tiny fraction of the population and have little economic, social, or political power, but they serve as a perfect fodder for a media narrative that benefits from a sky is falling narrative to a ratchet up viewership. The narrative is fed by our vanity and desire to imagine easy solutions to complex problems, e.g. more education, hate speech laws, welfarism, etc. You hear that, folks? tyranny, my friends. And we play along the assuming worst of others and issuing smug affirmations of our own superiority on Facebook and Twitter. In 2018, we will suffer through a round of midterm congressional elections, which will only intensify the political and cultural divide. But political parties will use events like Charlottesville to serve as their shameful partisan goals. Remember, folks, anyone's going to run for Congress and all that, going to use this to threaten all of our natural-born rights. Make it sound real adequate as actual police state referendum. The need for each side to vanquish the other, to punish, to repudiate the other's existence demonstrates what politics is termed war by other means. It is not a peaceable process. Yet, underneath it all, policy differences between Democrats and Republicans are laughably small. There is a turf battle, nothing more. In a winner-takes-all political world, elections are weapons. Unless and until we learn to reject politics as an overreaching, looks like they misspelled there, overarching method for organizing society, hatred and fear of the other will remain pervasive. Americans understand viscerally that government is far too much power who wins and loses in our society, but haven't fully grasped the degree to which a political class benefits from division. We still want to believe in gray screwed notions of democracy and voting. People of goodwill do not impose themselves on others politically any more than they do militarily. Libertarianism, with this goal of radically diminishing the scope of government and politics in our lives, offers a path to a more peaceful future. Only libertarians can claim mantle of anti-authoritarianism, because only libertarians will deny government the power and size to become authoritarian. The political world isn't working, so why do we insist on more politics to fix it? Precisely. I like that. That was a real good commentary on his part. This is why, my friends, you have to re-examine everything. Look at it as a big chessboard on the strategic move. What's going to be next? This magic lamp theory, which only works in movies. Okay? Yeah. So, next one here came from Defense One. I think it came out yesterday as well. It says, armed militia won't stop after Charlottesville, and that worries law enforcement. Is by Carolyn Howick. The president's armed right-wing militia at political events is becoming more common. One of the most striking images of Saturday's clash between white supremacist counter protesters in Charlottesville was the presence of dozens of heavily armed men and women dressed in combat fatigues resembling the National Guard and casting an imposing shadow over the event. But these were not law enforcement officers or soldiers. They were self-appointed militia who, public officials say, without proper training or legal authorities to act as security force, only make the situation more dangerous. Their participation in alt-right events is on the rise. One of the leader militia groups said they went to Charlottesville only to protect the peace. But during the chaos of Saturday's standoff, quickly militia members found they mostly had to defend themselves. One member whom one militia leader later said it was known to have mental health concerns, even drew a weapon and came very close to firing to the crowd. That's exactly what police officials say they're worried about. One shot could spark either further strategy. And they were calling on militia considering attending future events to stand down. Any groups that consider themselves a public safety group other than law enforcement is concerned because it's not their job. It's law enforcement's job. Sandra Hutchins, president of the Major County Sheriffs of America, told Defense One. The group is an association of elected sheriffs representing counties or parishes with 500,000 population or more. Okay, well, how come then? Well, you know what? I'm going to continue on here. The one reason presence, the heavily armed men patrolling during alt-right events adds a new level of danger, because no one is entirely sure why they were even there or to whom they were accountable, including militia members themselves. Law enforcement officers, on the other hand, are accountable to the public always. That's a very important point in this, said Hutchins, which is only as a sheriff coroner for Orange County, California. If we're not doing it properly, then we're accountable to the people in the government. Hutchins said that law enforcement agencies can also work with both sides of protest events ahead of time, as the groups are interested to establish safety guidelines, identify locations of protest, and establish rules of engagement in advance. That doesn't always work. Charlottesville police had established a safety plan with the Unite the Right protest on Saturday that was quickly disregarded and contributed to officials declaring a state of emergency. But many departments are trained in areas like crowd control and think how to engage with protesters and counter-protesters to a false or safe environment that still allows First Amendment expression. You don't want to have so many officers that if you don't need them, that makes it looks like you're trying to stifle somebody's ability to protest, he said. At the same time, you need to be prepared in the case if you have some individuals that are going to start breaking the law. When armed militias stepped into the breach acting as security forces protest, they can come without that training, without having to communicate with both sides, without the same legal responsibility for public safety. On Sunday, Christian Yingling, a Navy veteran and organizer of the Pennsylvania Lightfoot Militia, one of the key groups present during the day events, posted a 30-minute video on Facebook to explain his version of what happened and why they attended. Yingling's post is significant in how much it reveals about modern militia movements and how they operate, sometimes unknowingly along other groups, including the alt-right, whom Yingling repeatedly disavows. In his statement at points, Yingling seems remarkably politically astute. He begins by explaining all the militias that are under this one centralized command do not condone, support, or in any way align ourselves with white supremacy or racist dialogue or thinking. We were there to help keep the peace. Yingling never said who selected him and his group to be default police force on Saturday's event. He said only that the police group was in Charlottesville at the invitation of an affiliate group called the Virginia Militia Minutemen, or VMM. A VMM representative told Defense One that a friend had told him about the Unite the Right rally. We went by our own choosing because we felt it was the right thing for us to do as patriots, he said. David Shockey, a member of the Virginia militia who was at the Charlottesville protest, has described the group as a sort of an enhanced neighborhood watch association that sometimes provides volunteer security for things like Civil War events. He previously supported the Pennsylvania group during the Gettysburg demonstration, so the Pennsylvania group came down to Virginia to return the favor. Shockley identifies himself online as being an Army reservist for 7 years in the 1970s and currently employed as an armed professional security officer in Waynesboro, Virginia. But Shockley's Facebook wall shows several posts for supporting the Unite the Right rally and protesting the potential removal of the statue of Robert E. Lee from a park near the University of Virginia, which was a stated reason for the rally. When questioned directly about those posts, Shockley sounded more egalitarian tone, talking about an appreciation for history. He distanced himself from any support of the government of the Confederacy or from any endorsement of slavery. I love my country. I love people. I don't like to see anyone's rights abused or taken away. I have friends of all nationalities, and we can talk to each other without anger, he said. But Shockley also has shared several posts in recent months supporting Southern heritage, arguing changing Civil War names or monuments, calling for the removal of statues to Union Army generals, and promoting other revisionist history of the Civil War. More truth that hadn't been lied about. The real history had been rewritten by the North. He writes a top one post. He shares another that reads, the monuments that need to be removed are the ones to Custer, Grant, and Sherman throughout our country, not monuments to our Southern soldiers and generals. These three men in particular actually committed war crimes against private citizens on the scales of Adolf Hitler. Shockley's post also supported pro-Christian crusade themes and warned against Islam and Muslims in America. 3 weeks ago, He shared one editorial cartoon. He equated the Islamic State destruction of a historical statue in Iraq and Syria with the caption reads, "Liberals destroying historical monuments they find offensive. There is no difference." Yuengling too has posted items on Facebook wall from Confederacy-themed groups, but he does not publicly identify as a white supremacist, and his Facebook page is consistently and convincingly critical of the movement, describing it as hate on hate. Importantly, he describes Black Lives Matter and other protesters in precisely the same terms. Those posts are alone likely will disqualify those individuals from professional law enforcement or military service in most agencies, regardless of the personal beliefs of militia members. More and more, they are drawn into closer alignment with anti-government alt-right groups since the 2016 presidential election. So you see what's going on. They're trying to you see a lot of flip-flopping here as well. The pool of anti-American government extremist groups, including militias, typically contracts during Republican administrations after Trump won. A number of militia groups reorientated around the left-wing Antifa as a newfound enemy, said Mark Pikovich, a senior fellow at the Anti-Defamation League Center on Extremism. Well, we all know too. You know what? The Anti-Defamation League are New World Order organization, and will continue on here. The Antifa is loosely affiliated anti-fascist movement that has visibly participated in a number of demonstrations since inauguration, including Saturday's counter-protest in Charlottesville. By that time, militia groups have participated in a number of events that intertwine them with far-right groups, including some white supremacist ones. These events could include events organized by people on the far right. They could include people on the far right protesting the left-wing events, and they could include people on the far right protesting left-wing protests on right-wing figures like Ann Caller, Pikovich said. While some of these events turned violent, not all were, and none deadly as this past weekend. Bush said shockingly, and Yuengling simply don't know what they're getting into Saturday. Some members have found themselves sandwiched between club-wielding neo-Nazis and masked counter-protesters throwing tear gas. The group was physically attacked by both for attempting to maintain, Yuengling said, was a neutral stance. Yes, that's increasingly common stance militia groups have claimed as they become more active in the public sphere. According to Brian Lenz, a senior investigative writer at the Southern Poverty Law Center, a watchdog nonprofit that monitors extremist groups, the anti-government movement has coalesced around this idea that they can serve as national security forces in the public sphere, separated from police, he said. They feel that their role in a contentious political environment is to stand sometimes as a protector between the federal government and citizen, and more often than not, the citizen on the radical right and those who seek to silence that person. But the neutral does not mean qualified to serve as an armed protective force. At one point, Yuengling said one militia member drew his weapon at the crowd and threatened them before backing away to escape repeated assault. Yuengling later qualified the armed posture as a low-ready position. We call him TK. Yuengling explains in this post. TK has a neurological disorder. He refuses to stop. He was part of the melee that ensued. From that, he told me they swarmed him, were beating him, pepper spraying him. Yuengling argued TK was a model of restraint. Did they deploy those weapons? No. Did they have the right considering there was a mob attacking them? Yes. And this is what's so morose about this, okay, on this area. Because you got a lot of folks out there. It doesn't matter which side. It was Antifa, the alt-right, and so forth. You got a handful. You got people out there have that criminal mindset, and that's the only language they can comprehend. Violence with violence, which is horrible. I am not praising it, but it is the truth. The fact that the militia arrived armed and why has also been criticized and scrutinized by both sides. Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe told New York Times on Sunday that the president's armed groups carrying assault rifles and hurt police response is easy to criticize the people, he said, but I can tell you this, 80% of the people here had semi-automatic weapons. The quote was later removed from the Times story after the official said the governor was mistaken. See, that's what happens when you assume. Karen Geller, Virginia State Police spokesperson, told Defense One, "I think he was just all into the fact that some of these individuals may have more firearms than our troopers did on them at the moment. It doesn't mean our folks did not have the adequate equipment. We had the necessary tactical, protective, and operational equipment necessary to protect our troopers and officers as well as the individuals there," she said. The militia was compliance with state law. Virginia is an open carry state. And some people, oh, well, they got open carry states, so they were instigating. No, they weren't. It's called peace of mind. I will proceed here. Charlottesville Police Chief Al Thomas on Monday said, "We were certain not intimidated by the firepower of the alt-right, but officers did have quickly to transition from everyday uniforms to protective gear when violence broke out, and obviously we had to be cognizant of their presence." Lieutenant Steve Upman, a spokesperson of the Charlottesville Police. Yeah, I tell you one thing, you got an ass clown mayor in there. You should crucify that guy for his actions, and I say that legally, from a legal perspective. It is not a matter of Second Amendment rights, said Hutchins, the president of the major county sheriffs of America, legally carrying firearms or not. The presence of armed militia groups can affect the way law enforcement professionals handle the situation. Can you explain to me then why the police aren't obligated to protect an individual under their Sovereign Immunity Tort Liability Act? I know there has been some discussion about open carry. I respect laws of those states, she said, but it does complicate matters when you have these types of incidents occur because it only takes one person to really cause a problem. Well, you got folks in uniform who are considered governmental delegates try to hurt people for no apparent reason. I remember what happened down in Miami with that whole America's Free Trade of Americas, okay, down in Miami. Unarmed people got hurt by governmental delegates. That's the police. Okay, when they did some, even times in Occupy, all right, people got shot, people got injured. Well, I tell you one thing, they had a militia in Phoenix. Some of those so-called insecure ones of that entity backed off when the protesters had an armed militia. They backed off real quick. So I don't know what the cause of the problem is. Like I said, I'm just going to continue on here. I know I'm digressing, folks. The England of the Pennsylvania militia guessed the number of total armed members of the organized militia in Charlottesville as closer to 32 individuals. He said that police were well aware of the group's presence, knew where they would be, and there was coordination between the two. Even if the public outcry for peace following Charlottesville might have some militia members think twice about public association with far-right protests, the possibility of violence means many may feel a duty to attend regardless. We've passed the time where these are peaceful assemblies. The expectation should be going forward that these will erupt into violence, I believe, said the SPLC's lens. Yeah. Always gotta expect that. So, and I also would argue the Patriot movement, the so-called anti-government movement, will think that these things will result in violence as well, and they are here to protect those who are being oppressed. Pretty senseless rhetoric, I would say. Indeed, as Yingling's video commentary as Charlottesville goes on, he becomes increasingly frustrated with that he perceives as inaction from local police. At one point, he says he asked them, "How come you guys aren't doing anything about this?" I was told that law enforcement, was told they were not to intercede unless it got really bad. I guess rioting wasn't bad enough, so I guess we're the only assets for crowd control. Bob Watson contributed this report. There you go. Like I said, I've seen these videos from the Comedy News Network and I had to analyze it multiple times, and they did things half-assed. This is why you got these militias coming in, oath keepers and all that, because many of them are police officers, serving the military, want to keep the peace. And you're going to say where the government will protect you? It doesn't work that way, my friends. does not always 100% guarantee. If we study the history when riots broke out in Baltimore, that douchebag mayor of UAG or Oog or Goo, whatever you want to call her, had the police step down. And look what happened in Charlottesville. They had the police step down. And look what happened over at Berkeley. The police stepped down. This is called blowback. You're worried? You can't even take care of your own affairs. And I say that in good faith. And this is why they're coming around here. They see these things. They're not stupid. So the only way to solve this, they got to do their part at the best of their ability. If they can have talk with some of the honorable folks like folks over in the militias, have a discussion, but don't deprive them. Work with them, and even members of the militia groups. Some folks may have some issues, and in good faith, you should talk to them. You're sure about this move. You're sure you want to do this. We don't want to see you pop off. Only when it's necessary. Lord willing. That's a real shame, my friends. They don't want the people, folks, help out. They believe government knows best. That's why I really find it leery in those areas. And I know I am ranting here, so forgive me. I'm just being me, I guess. And you know what? what I'm gonna be doing here as well is add the sovereign immunity tort liability link, so you folks can read this for yourselves. And it goes through all 50 states and territories, etc. And it includes the Commonwealth of Virginia. And of course, they have the punitive damage. I think you have the punitive damage law here. Let's find out. I'm learning this as well along the way. And they do, and according to state statutes, punitive damage against the state, that includes the city as well and all that good stuff. According to Virginia Code Section 8.01-195.3, which is a Virginia Tort Claims Act. Technically, the police aren't obligated to protect you. They're going to try to use that even if the folks from the Unite the Right try to sue this. It may get them a contractual agreement, but always be aware of these particular tort claims acts. So I'm going to have this on my footnotes also, which is from the National Conference of State Legislators. It's called State Sovereign Immunity Tort Liability, and you can go further and all that good stuff. Hey, I'm here to teach you folks, and you send me comments and information. We're here to learn from one another. All right? So, next one here about violence is getting a little bit rampant. And this is from a blog by the American Thinker. It came out today, and it's entitled "Itching for a Fight: America Under Siege Before Charlottesville." This is by Susan D. Harris. It says here, long before talk of KKK and neo-Nazis came to Charlottesville, Virginia, large fights were leaving cities across America, battered and bruised. Spring and summer of 2017 saw an epidemic of what the media simply called large fights from Florida to Texas and New York to Utah. Dozens, sometimes hundreds of people have been beating the crap out of each other, generally using bare fists, knives, baseball bats, and occasional gun, always leaving injured or dead in their wake. The reason for the massive fighting is usually unclear and always senseless, as baffled police continually ask anyone with information to contact them. It doesn't matter whether it is gang-related, drug-related, or after bars closed. What matters is that it's happening, and if you happen to be driving down the wrong street, cutting through the wrong parking lot, or walking through the wrong park or mall when it begins, you'll play hell escaping unharmed. I caught my own local headlines playing down one such fight. The headline read something simple like "Police break up large fight." When I clicked on The story, I nearly fell over reading that an estimated 200 people have been actively fighting along 2 city blocks. Close your eyes and picture that for a moment. 200 people beating the hell out of each other in the middle of a city street. The word is overused these days, but I have to say, it would be apocalyptic to witness firsthand. If you're dismissing this frightening scenario as happening only in large metropolitan cities, you are partly right. There's a partial list of some of the large fights for the spring-summer 2017. April 2nd, Gainesville, Florida. 3 people were arrested and 1 police officer was assaulted after police responded of a reports of a large street fight. Police did not give an estimate of how many were involved. April 6th, New Jersey City, New Jersey. Cops used pepper spray to break up massive Jersey City street brawl. Many students are involved. 1 is stabbed, horns honk, as a fight among an estimated 50 young people spills into traffic. A police officer overheard reports of a planned large street fight minutes before. April 6th and 7th, Portland, Oregon. Brazen groups of 20-40 teens fight at a mall and across the street from the police precinct. 1 report said officers arrived at the mall to find a group of about 20 young people assaulting mall employees, damaging property, and fighting with security staff. April 14th, Rochester, New York. A massive police presence used tasers and pepper spray to break up a large fight, reportedly involving 300 people. When police initially arrived on the scene, they say they found multiple groups of people fighting in the street. April 16th, Detroit, Michigan. A shocking Greek town street brawl gets posted on Facebook as local TV reports a mob of young people getting out of control and beating 2 men on the street. April 16th, Central Illinois. Police called for assistance from 6 surrounding police departments for a large Saturday night fight. April 24th, Grand Forks, North Dakota. A large group of people started fighting outside City Hall, leaving it damaged. April 26th. You can get these links here as well. You're going to see it for yourself. 3 men were stabbed in a large fight near downtown Syracuse. Entire city blocks were sealed off with crime tape. An officer at the scene said there had been a large group fight. April 26th, Millville, New Jersey. People were called for a large group fighting. A woman is punched, kicked, and dragged by several men and women. The beating goes viral on Facebook. May 8th, 2 juveniles were shot in a low-income housing complex. It may have stemmed up a large street fight that occurred there earlier. May 10th, St. Paul, Minnesota. A large fight between young people, including some wielding baseball bats, broke out a near-busy recreation center. 3 teens needed medical attention. The neighbor is left in fear following other reports over the past week of brawls at St. Paul's Parks. This article is quite detailed and frightening. May 20th, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. People said multiple people began fighting in the street following two vehicle crash. Large group of people appear to be attacking a woman in the street. A witness reported that 4 or 5 men were standing around watching like it was some big show or something. May 15th, Coney Island, New York, which is Brooklyn South. A stray of bullets hit window of an elderly couple who reported that rowdy teens are often fighting in the street below their window. This incident is notable for once again drawing attention to the fact that in New York City there are some cases where gunfire isn't counted as an official shooting, like if bullets don't strike a person. May 17th, Baltimore, Maryland. Only 2 people were arrested at a city watch camera. Operators observed large fight downtown. May 17th, Syracuse, New York. A large fight is reported in the early afternoon near Transit Hub, leaving 2 hospitalized. May 18th, Cleveland, Ohio. Police responded to a large group fighting and exchanging gunfire in the Hoe neighborhood. May 19th, New London, Connecticut. Men and juveniles were arrested in a large New London fight after police responded to reports of a group of males carrying sticks, bats, and bottles and talking about assaulting someone. May 22nd, Maplewood, New Jersey. Police estimated that 150 to 200 teenagers crowded into a park after a festival. The mayor said he saw one altercation involving only a few of the teens, but according to Maplewood police, it took 5 different police departments and the sheriff's department to break up the crowd. Local media reported it as a simple melee. May 30th, West Valley, Utah, which is southwest area of Salt Lake City. A teenage boy shot after neighbors heard arguing and threatened to call police after they saw a group fighting in the street. May 30th, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Police responded to 15 separate shootings. 2 children were shot after adults started fighting in the street and fired guns. The police chief warns that disputes escalated too quickly for police to have a chance at intervening. June 25th, Manhattan, New York. A police officer struck by an SUV after police responding officers tried to break up a large group of men fighting. July 5th, Niagara, New York. After fireworks, police used pepper spray to disperse 200 people near a park. Another 70 to 80 are dispersed nearby, and multiple police units respond to another park where 30 people are actively fighting with several other spectators watching. July 5th, Grand Haven, Michigan. Grand Haven State Beach was evacuated following a large fight involving 300 people. July 13th, Dayton, Ohio. Police deputies escort funeral procession for homicide victim following a large fight at a Baptist church. What the hell? That is so conceited. Fight at a Baptist church, at a funeral. That's what you tell folks. Some of these pieces of trash, these individuals have no morals. One thing I tell folks, when we go to a funeral, you pay your respects. And even the people that gather, like them or not, you don't alter anything. You set your differences to the side on that day. You always consider this. Churches, like funerals, are considered sacred, or in other words, holy land, holy ground. All right? Something I learned from Highlander. Okay, you never fight. Like remember, they never fight at a cemetery or a church and all that because it's considered holy ground. So those are rules. These rules have to stick in a place like that. I seen a couple kids brawl too at a funeral, trying to break up, and that's pathetic. These people need to wise up. July 15th, Wichita, Kansas. Police say a family fight over childcare on Friday boiled over Saturday evening when 50, 60, 80 people got into a large disturbance. July 16th, Killeen, Texas. Riot broke out at a Texas mall involving 35 to 45 adults and juveniles. Police were able to get control of the riot inside, but were able to move it out of the building. I believe that's somewhere like north of Dallas. July 16th, Syracuse, New York. A man shot in the ankle as police responded to a large fight with several groups of people. July 17th, Amsterdam, New York. People say large fight leads 5 stabbed in Amsterdam. Parking lot brawl. And they do have the windmills there too. July 20th, Syracuse, New York. A Thursday afternoon, police responded to 911 calls reporting a big fight where some people have been stabbed. July 26th, Staten Island, New York. Slashing and shooting were part of a large fight in Stapleton. July 26th, Austin, Texas. Austin police investigated a large fight at Fiesta Gardens Park. Neighbors said it happens often, and video footage was available and shown on KVUE-TV. So it happens often. Folks got to learn to break this crap up. And the folks that go in these little fight at these parks, especially have folks around, innocent people around, you don't know how to think. July 27th, Ellenville, New York. Police responded to a street fight involving some 30 people. An 18-year-old who allegedly tried to run over another person during a large fight faced felony charges. July 29th, Buffalo, New York. A 20-year-old man was stabbed during a large fight involving 30 or 40 people. One thing seems obvious: the malevolent force is trying to drag this country back to the social divide of 1968 or 1868 have a restless army at their disposal. When the frenzy is high, there seems little difference in the danger of pointing a statue or a politician. One need only yell into the madding crowd, "Are you ready?" and light your torches and go. Unless the stampede is herded away from the cliff, those caught up in the swell will destroy their friends, their neighbors, their countrymen, and ultimately themselves. I gotta give Miss Harriet credit for this. She's absolutely correct. You see what's going on. I bet you man these brawls was a spit in the bucket, someone farted, something really petty. Most of these cases. Folks better start thinking. Think before their actions. If you're gonna brawl, have a big brawl in the middle of the mall or the street or a pizza place. I see this happen a lot. You just thinking of yourselves and no one else. And that is conceited of you. Going to some place and fighting in someone else's lair. You know what? You're not a human being. You're ungrateful, folks. Self-defense does happen. Don't get me wrong, but when you got these predators, these assailants that want to hurt others, one day something's gonna hurt you. You're gonna be hurt by yourself or someone you love. If that occurs, if you keep on doing it, and sometimes you may get seriously injured or get taken out. Only thing you blame are yourselves. And that's it. Enough of that. Okay. I'll be back. Alright, yeah, I know I'm a little bit going overboard here, so bear with me, I almost got a few left. So this one, next one here actually is from the Daily Caller, and it's by Luke Royziak, 2 former Wasserman Schultz ITAs indicted for conspiracy against the U.S. So it reads here, came out yesterday, right? Came out yesterday? Yeah, yesterday around 7:38 p.m. Eastern Time. It says here, a federal grand jury Thursday indicted 2 former information technology or ITAs of Democratic Representative Deborah Wasserman Schultz, Pakistani-born Ermin Oman and his wife Hannah Elvey on 4 counts of conspiracy in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. The FBI arrested Oman at Dulles Airport July 24th as he was preparing to board flight to Pakistan when his wife Elvey left the U.S. for Pakistan in March. Federal authorities found more than $12,000 cash hidden in the suitcase. She had withdrawn the couple's 3 children from local schools and did not attend to the U.S. according to the FBI. Defendants of Oman and Elvey did unlawful, willfully, and knowingly conspire, combine, confederate, and agree with each other to commit offenses against the United States, including bank fraud, false statements, and unlawful monetary transactions, the indictment said. An arraignment date has not been set yet, and spokesman for the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia did not immediately respond to the Daily Caller News Foundation investigative report group's question about how Hannah Elvey would become a fugitive if she did not return to the U.S. voluntarily, or whether officials would seek to extradite her from Pakistan. In addition to lying on multiple mortgage disclosures that the affidavit alleged at the time of Armin's arrest, the indictment claimed Hannah lied by claiming medical hardship in order to withdraw hundreds of thousands of dollars from a retirement group. Oman's 3 of their relatives and a close friend are the targets of an FBI and U.S. Capitol Police criminal investigation into allegations they committed congressional cybersecurity violations and a large-scale theft of congressional property in a scheme that may have gone over more than a decade ago. Who work as ITAs for dozens of House Democrats, including many who were members of the Intelligence, Foreign Affairs, and Homeland Security committees. Most Democrats fired them when the Capitol Police investigation became public in February and their access to congressional IT systems was terminated. However, Wasserman Schultz kept Elvey on her payroll until March and Alwan until the day after his arrest. Authorities arrested Alwan on the bank fraud charges in order to take his passport and prevent his leaving the U.S. as the investigation into the Capitol Hill activities continued. Yes.
I don't know, he coming from. They're attacking them because they're Muslims.
Awan retained Chris Gowan, a longtime aide of former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, to represent him shortly after his arrest. Can we say controversy? Gowan has claimed the media interviews that Alvey left the country with the children only because lost jobs and high cost of living in the nation's capital. Gowan told the press that the family lives in the Scholar in Pakistan. I will continue. Gowan also told New York Times that Alwyn wired a series of large sums of U.S. dollars to Pakistan as part of a long-time plan to buy property there. The couple had combined income of $360,000 a year and owned 4 properties in the Washington, D.C. area, public records show. In January, Imran, while impersonating his wife, according to the FBI, wired $283,000 from a white Patman Congressional Federal Credit Union. The wire transfer specialist as Alwan. For the reason the wire transfer, and Alwan stated that it was for funeral arrangements. Arrest indictment said the wire transfer specialist questioned whether funeral arrangements was sufficient reason for a large transfer. Alwan then changed his reason to purchasing property. The wire transfer specialist initiated $283,000 from the United States to 2 individuals in Faisalabad, Pakistan. Even after Alwan's arrest in July, it's possible more money flowed to Pakistan. On August 3rd, he sold a home for $617,000 according to public records. Gowan declined to say if the proceeds were wired to Pakistan. Political reported that Alwan couple had a friendly personal relationship with Wasserman, Schultz, who was a Florida Democrat and a former chairman of the Democratic National Committee, or you say DNC. They also reportedly close to another Democrat representative, Gregory Meeks of New York. Wasserman Schultz resigned from the DNC in July 2016 when WikiLeaks released hacked committee emails. She defended keeping Alwan on her payroll even after she was aware he was suspected of, as she described, a data transfer violation. She claimed she had a racial and ethnic profiling concerns and would do it, keep Alwan again. In addition to allegations of fraud and criminal investigation, other family members have been accused of fraud and worse by Muslim acquaintances and relatives in civil court. Alwan is currently involved in a civil case against his stepmother, Samia Galani. Alwan wanted his stepmother to sign a power of attorney document giving him access to money in Pakistan that was stored in a recently deceased father's name. The stepmother has become homeless while the children, with a combined income of hundreds of thousands of dollars per year, are fighting her over her $50,000 life insurance policy. She claims that Alwan used his IT skills to wiretap her and his government connections to intimidate her. Galani also said Alwan told her he had the power to have people kidnapped. Strange allegations, huh? Imran Alwan's brother Jamal and Abid also were on the House payroll at the chief of staff level salaries, and Jamal filed a death certificate for his father that falsely said he was divorced. Abid changed the beneficiary of their father's life insurance policy from the wife to himself after his death. Galani lawyer said Imran Alwan threatened that he's very powerful, and if I ever call the police again, he will kidnap my family members back in Pakistan. Galani claimed the document filed in Fairfax County, Virginia. Thursday's indictments, along with court documents and other cases, are viewable at court docs link below. The list of members who employed the family follows, and there's a lot of docs and DWS. Now it says laptops. There's a big, all this list here. You can see it for yourselves. And of course, IT Guide's criminal probe could read these members' emails. And like it says here, Alwan and the associate collected more than $5 million in pay from congressional offices, often drawing chief of staff level pay, though there is a reason to believe many didn't even show up. They are suspected of cybersecurity violations. The money is broken down by year. Congressional offices and family member paid to Aman, Abid, Jamal Alwan, Hana Alvi, Dalita, Silva, and Raul a boss, and it tells you the members and all this good stuff, how much money they made. You could just browse through here. Wasserman, Schultz, yeah, look at that, wow. So it tells you the total and all that good stuff, so you can really look at this. I can tell you one thing, my friends, you know what? If Debbie gets away with this, at least not being prosecuted, it will be a total disgrace. Alright. So looks like she's been on a big slippery slope as well. And we all know she's a freedom hater. I'm just real curious. It'll be very interesting how this case is going to go. Well, Mr. Awan gonna belly up, make an agreement. Mr. Awan, make an agreement. We'll see what happens. But this is bigger than what Donald Trump has to say in Charlottesville. Okay? This is a lot bigger than saying Trump is unfit. And you talk to a man who's not, worshiping God, praising him by any means. But this is bigger. What you see right now there is a distraction. So we'll just stay tuned, I guess, right? Yeah. Alright. Here's something interesting that happened on the 16th of August. It was by BuzzFeed News. As leak probes abound, Tillerson promotes Diplomat who passed classified info to AIPAC. Motion of David Satterfield comes as the Trump administration cracks down on leakers elsewhere in government. This is by John Hudson. Yeah, I'm not gonna be biased. I'm not partisan biased. As the Trump administration widens crackdown on unauthorized leaks to the press, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson has promoted a diplomat to provide classified information to an influential pro-Israel lobbying group that resulted in espionage charges. David Satterfield, a longtime Middle East hand and extensive experience in the region, has named as acting assistant secretary of state for Near Eastern Affairs, a State Department official told BuzzFeed News. In 2005, federal prosecutors said Satterfield provided classified national security secrets to a top lobbyist group for the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, a powerful special interest group simply known as AIPAC. The accusations was included in an indictment that charged two former AIPAC employees, Stephen Rosen and Keith Wiseman, and a former Pentagon official, Lawrence Franklin, under the Espionage Act with illegally trafficking classified information. Satterfield avoided prosecution in the case after the top State Department officials argued to the FBI that Shatter had acted with his authority in sharing information. Franklin pleaded guilty to espionage related to charges in 2006, and prosecutors also dropped the case against Rosenman and Wiseman in 2009. In a 2005 indictment, prosecutors said an unnamed U.S. government official provided Rosen with classified information during two meetings. The New York Times and other news outlets later identified Satterfield as an unnamed official listed as USGO2 who passed on information about Iran, Al-Qaeda, and U.S.-Israel intelligence sharing. Rosen then allegedly passed some of that information to an Israeli official. And there's a list right here for it. It says here 7, 8, 9, 10 on or about January 23, 2002, Rosen had a conversation with the foreign national and disclosed classified information provided to Rosen by USGO2 during their January 18, 2002 meeting. 8. On or about March 12, 2002, Rosen and USGO met and discussed classified information regarding Al-Qaeda. 9. On or about March 13, 2002, Rosen disclosed to a fellow AIPAC employee classified information regarding Al-Qaeda that had been provided by USGO2. 10. On or about March 14, 2002, Rosen met with the foreign official 2, FO2, and disclosed classified information regarding Al-Qaeda previously provided by USGO2 on March 12, 2002. When we asked about Satterfield's role in the incident, in a State Department official said, we We are not going to comment on any claims related to intelligence matters. The decision to elevate Satterfield to the highest diplomatic position for the Middle East comes as critics charge that the Trump administration's campaign against leakers is motivated by concerns about politics rather than national security. Earlier this month, Attorney General Jeff Sessions said the number of the criminal leak investigation has tripled in the initial months of the Trump administration. There was another indication that President Trump isn't so much concerned about hypothetical national security damage from leaks as much as he's preoccupied with stifling journalism that's critical of his administration, said Trevor Tim, executive director of the Freedom of the Press Foundation, a group that advocates for press freedoms. Others said the move revealed an untoward coziness with a pro-Israel lobbying organization known for advancing hardline policies that aren't always in step with U.S. interests. Satterfield's appointment is a symptom of Washington's permissive to foreign government influence when the foreign government is purported ally, said Robert Naiman, policy director at Just Foreign Policy, a pro-diplomacy advocacy group. The case against AIPAC officials remain controversial as it touched on the role of pro-Israel advocates and their close involvement with senior government officials in crafting of U.S. policy in the Middle East. It was also unusual for being the first prosecution under the espionage law in which defendants were not government officials but private citizens who obtained classified information from conversations with officials. At the time, lobbyists said think tankers feared the case could criminalize the engage of sensitive national security information. Advocates of Satterfield note that he was never charged in the incident and that interacting with AIPAC officials was a normal part of being a diplomat given the lobby's outsized influence in shaping U.S. policy. They also say his views were not always in lockstep with organizations. I wouldn't describe him as an adherent Israel booster, but says he certainly believes it's an American national interest to be friend with Israel, Rosen told BuzzFeed in an interview. A former State Department official said Satterfield maintains a good reputation in Foggy Bottom as a very knowledgeable, articulate, and experienced diplomat who worked in tough conditions in the Middle East with a high level of professionalism. U.S. officials declined to say why Satterfield was never charged at the time. But Richard Armitage, who was Deputy Secretary of State at the time, told BuzzFeed on Wednesday that he and another senior State Department official, Bill Burns, defended Satterfield in conversation with the FBI. We had a great deal of difficulty trying to explain to the FBI that David was a declassifying authority and he could decide what he could give away, Armitage said. Another casualty of the FBI's 5-year investigation of Rosen and Wiseman was former California Representative Jane Harman, who was overheard on a group wiretap discussing the case. Harman reportedly made an agreement with an Israeli intelligence operative to interject with the Bush administration, allow leniency for Rosen and Wiseman in exchange for help in convincing top Democrats to give her the chairmanship of the House Intelligence Committee. Harman denied that any such idea was made. Interesting, right? In the end, a series of pretrial rulings created problems for the government, including an appeals court decision permitted that the defense use of national defense information at trial, and a judge's ruling and the defense could call on a star-studded witness list, including former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, a former National Security Advisor Stephen Hadley, and several other officials. Government officials were uncomfortable with the prospects of top officials testifying in open court, and in 2009, prosecutors dropped their cases against 2 men, saying government needed to consider the likelihood that classified information would be revealed at trial and whether they would prevail at trial. It wasn't a total defeat for the government. Franklin, the former Pentagon official, pleaded guilty and was sentenced to more than 12 years in prison, although it was later reduced to 10 months of house arrest. The case proved controversial inside the Justice Department. Some officials doubted the wisdom of bringing charges, saying Rosen and Wiseman acted imprudently but not illegally. Some FBI officials argued that there was enough evidence to convince a jury to find Rosen and Wiseman guilty. The top official at the FBI's Washington office, Joseph Perashini, said he was disappointed in the decision to drop the charges and commended the work of the FBI agents. Is a correction. Lawrence Franklin's name was misspelled in the previous version of this post. Well. So you see what's happening? This stuff has been going on for a very long time, regardless who's in office. So that's why I want to be fair, okay? Because this is interesting as well. You have these lobbyist groups trying to get their hands on certain classified information and tell people what to think instead of their own citizens. So this is what we gotta look at everything across the board. We gotta remain vigilant and start calling out these parasites. Alright, something's interesting is happening at Pakistan. AsiaTimes.com came out a couple days ago. Confrontation looms in a polarized Pakistan. The Supreme Court ousted Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif on asset concealment charges has set the country's rival parties on a collision course. Will the military eventually step in? Pakistan celebrated its 70th Independence Day amid rising political polarization as ruling and opposition political parties joust over the supremacy of the parliament and proposed plans to curb the powers of influential military judiciary. The ruling Pakistan Muslim League, NAWIS or PLMN, has been cast into disarray since its leader, Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, was disqualified on July 28th on asset concealment charges. Its government, now led by Shadi Khalid Abazi, a former petroleum minister and budget airline founder who recently appointed pro-Sharif cabinet, has since called for a new social contract to make state institutions more beholden to the Constitution and electorate. The party recently suggested a new draft of a new constitution ensure that the popular will is accepted and respected by parliamentarians and that elected officials are not easily removed on concomitant and flimsy charges as Sharif has claimed he was ousted on. The PLMN is now advocating for a new system, one that proposes to cut the power of both of the judiciary and military by amending Article 62 and 63 of the Constitution, which give sweeping powers to courts to disqualify a democratically elected government and individual politicians for not being honest and truthful. Ooh, interesting there, huh? The party has not spelled out, however, how it plans to achieve two-thirds majority in both House and Parliament. It needs to enact required charter amendments, even if the PLMN succeeded in mustering support of its allies and wins over the Maladula Kwame movement, MQM, and independents and other smaller represented entities, still wouldn't have 70 votes needed to initiate the process in the upper house Senate. The main opposition party, including Pakistani Tehreek Insaf (PTI) and the Pakistani People's Party (PPP), have already announced they are opposed to any such movement, nor are other smaller opposition parties likely to subscribe. The Functional Muslim League of Parga in Sindh, which has 6 seats in the lower house of parliament, has already announced that it would not be part of the campaign. There's a helicopter flying by. Religious parties, including government allies, so they would not support the repeal of Article 62 or 63 of the Constitution, which stipulates on matters related to the qualifications and disqualifications of the parliamentarians. The political jousting seems set to intensify in the wake of Sharif's disqualification from office by the Supreme Court decision. He has strongly contested on the grounds the ruling was not based on proven corruption or receiving kickbacks, but rather that he failed to declare a salary he received from his son's United Arab Emirates-based company, capital FZE. A National Accountability Bureau (NAB) set to file cases against Sharif Mariam and his daughters Hassin and Hassan, his sons, and retired Captain Sabadar, a son-in-law, relating to various assets that were deemed as disproportionate to their known sources of income. All these cases will be filed in the NAB Accountability Court next month. The Supreme Court has a 6-month deadline for the cases to be finalized. If found guilty, they could face imprisonment and confiscation of offshore assets believed to be worth millions of US dollars. A separate case has also filed an incumbent finance minister Isaac Dar for possessing assets beyond known sources of his income. How about a Mills money laundering case, which was first filed by the NAB in 2000 against Sharif, but later squashed by the Lahore High Court in 2014, is also being revived on the Supreme Court orders. Dahar has given a confessional statement where he divulged information about the Sharif family's alleged money laundering in the 1990s, but later reneged under oath statement, saying it was recorded under duress. Okay? The NAB would investigate now his friend, Saeed Moza Ghani, a nephew of Dar's wife, Kashif Masood Qazi, son of a retired officer from the London Stock Exchange, Javed Khajini, former chairman of the Pakistani and Sugar Mills Association, and Sadi Amin, president of the National Bank of Pakistan. A defiant Sharif has denied all the charges, which he has characterized as a political witch hunt. In response, he has set out a public mobilization drive last week where he played the political victim card to a strategic effect at a mammoth homecoming rally in Lahore. It took ousted leader 4 days to make the road trip from the capital Islamabad to his hometown of Lahore, as he mobilized his supporters along the way. Wow. Okay. During his speech, Sharif has taken critical aim against the 5-member bench of the Supreme Court, which disqualified him from office. This insinuating the decision was more political than legal. 5 people have ignored the mandate of 200 million people, he grumbled. Someone tell me why I was disposed, he repeatedly asked at top stops on his caravan tour. He also vaguely suggests his grassroots supporters may eventually need to answer his call without elaborating it, while rallying against a deep-rooted conspiracy to oust him from power without naming names, but pointing indirectly in the direction of the military. Sharif has repeatedly noted that no democratically elected Pakistani prime minister have ever completed his or her full tenure due to military coups and places intrigues. His ouster comes ahead of the election scheduled for 2018. The military has not made any public statement on its court-ordered disqualification. The opposition claimed that public funds or other resources have been liberally utilized by the PLMN government to stage a senseless power show at the recent pro-Sharif rallies. The event have received apparent strong grassroots support from government workers and laborers, many of whom travel great distances to attend the rallies. Interesting here, our opposition parties led by Imran Khan's PTI have since threatened that they would rouse crowds 10 times bigger than Sharif's rallies if he conspired to intimidate the judiciary into ruling his family's and political allies' favors. During the joint independence celebration this week at Lakwai Bagh Rawalpindi on Sunday, the PTI and Shakib Rashid's Armani Muslim League, or ALM, openly threw their support behind the judiciary and military establishment. They declared, if needed, that the nation was still as a rock to protect the Supreme Court and the Joint Investigation Team, which conducted preliminary inquiry into Sharif's family, while the JIT has not come any known direct threats. The Supreme Court has asked government to provide its members protection. Oh, the cloak and daggering going on, right? With all political rumbling, and many fear the country may drift political turmoil in the days ahead as both sides mobilize their supporters and the question of the legitimacy of the other side's positions and claim. While the opposition has come out in support of the military, it remains to be seen how the top brass would respond to any serious outbreak of political violence. Some have nervously drawn parallels to the situation in 1948, at the year after Pakistan burst as a nation, where the founding father Muhammad Ali Jinnah died and the military seized power in this tumultuous vacuum. The army remained in virtual power for over 32 years, while over the past 7 decades, the civilian government has completed its full tenure for various reasons. Despite Sharif's protestation, that pattern seems to set to hold. A lot of interesting stuff is happening here. And I like what it says here. I'm not very familiar with the Constitution, but I like to say what Ali Ibrahim said. Pakistan cannot be run by Punjabis or Sindhis or Balochis. Jana was Gujarati, only Gujarati or Memon can run the country. Look at Gujarati Bandi in India. So it says here, Muhammad Ashraf says, still cannot provide toilet to 700 million jobs, 700 million jobs well done in 70 years, Guju. And that there was sense that whatever you find a sincere, devout Muslim not busy lining his pocket or they are stringing up jihadism to create his own Salafic power base that will consider a new abnormal. And of course, now Muhammad Ashraf said, Nawaz Sharif did so many wrongs, no doubt, but dismissal was on the grounds which was not part of the case even. So there's a lot of stuff is happening in that area. It's just, like I said, corruption and tyrannies around the world, folks. So that is really it on those topics. I know it's been pretty long. Woo, man. Yeah, almost an hour and a half. And I do apologize. Usually I do like 45 minutes, but I guess I was in that mood just to keep proceeding. So I guess that'd be really it. And I can make one more statement, you know, in reference to the statues being removed from the Confederacy and all that, or use a race car and so forth. One thing folks gotta realize, everyone needs to study their history thoroughly. That's what I say about having humble discussions, and just share. Don't go on a tirade and have your passion and have chains around your necks and all that. Because what I'm seeing, it's been occurring a lot. Not just in the United States, but this is worldwide. It has happened. Even when ISIS tore out some of the stuff in Syria, there was instances like even the Great Gardens of Iraq was ruined during the invasion by the United States. And even the time of the Holy Roman Empire, when the pagans got conquered and they just destroyed their statues, their gods, their runes, their ritual sites. It's been proven too. Even in like places like Norway, where churches are burning and they found ornaments as well. And we can even go to way back to 70 CE when the Romans took down Jerusalem, burnt it to the ground, and a lot of their booklets, scrolls were seized or perished. This is why. It's another thing I have to add too. It's like when a lot of the Africans from the early 1600s and all that came in, they got their names changed forcibly. That's unacceptable as well. So I'm doing this across the board. Doesn't matter where you're from. When I see tyranny in all walks of life, people's heritage and their names and cultures be perished, it is condemning to the core. And this is what the New World Order wants. They want to scrap, terminate heritage, culture, and individualism. What we're seeing is just examples. It's been going on for a very long time. We got to revive all that back. People should know their roots, their history, their heritage. Doesn't matter where you're from. It is vital, because then we can educate each other, share this information. Because the government's not going to do it. Like-minded individuals can. Like I'll say it one more time on Thomas Paine's quote: "The mind, once enlightened, cannot again become dark." Every single individual within humanity can make it happen. It won't occur overnight, but within a period of time. And that is it. I'd like to thank everyone for listening, plus feel free to download and share throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or even say something that's interesting and may want to check out, whatever you do, please address your correspondence with decorum. I get a little crack in the back there. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedoms Network, Scene.lifeminds.com, FutureNet.club, or Patreon.com/LokiLuck3 with 3 I's all together. In addition, you can email me at LokiLuck3@gmail.com, or for your encrypted ones, LokiLuckNumbers03@ProtonMail.com. I decided to play a song again, and why not? This is a band from the Mid-Hudson Valley area of New York. I believe they're from Montrose, which is in that area near Sleepy Hollow. A town that exists, by the way. Interesting place. A big cemetery on the hill. They have it. And it was nice that they're back together, jamming and all that. So this is a song called "Breaking Clas." I just browsed around on YouTube and checked the song out. It has a right to be heard. Something we have to look at. Because of one thing we know for sure, friends. Government wants to divide the people, regardless that they can rule over us. They love distractions. They love us seeing fighting against each other. They manifest on it. Always have that in the back of your mind if you're going to do these rallies, protests, and so forth. Don't be the enemy. Be the rabbi, the teacher. Finesse and homage can get you a long way. Expect others trying to call you out, baseless rhetoric, but counter it with productivity. Intellectual ammunition is the way. Alright, my friends, thank you for your time. But always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.